Well, the Saints make a resurgence after firing head coach Dennis Allen. This is from the Pat McAfee show. Pat Mac talking to the New Orleans Saints. Why am I not in focus? There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and listen to what Pat has to say. Now, I know you can't see it in the title and all that stuff, but on the thumbnail, it mentions the new practices that Darren Rizzi has going on here, a.k.a. the Rizzler. And from what I've heard, okay, now I'm not at practice every day, but from the beat writers that I have heard talk about it, they've mentioned that there is a renewed, there's a lot of stuff that goes unseen in the NFL and that coaches have to do. All the way down to where players are sitting in the locker room, to what practice looks like, to what the travel looks like, what the plane rides look like. Apparently, Rizzi has been very, very hands-on in changing a lot of that. The first thing I heard he did was reorganize the locker room to where people are now sitting in different areas, and his reasons are his reasons. But it seems like Dennis Allen lacked. Well, it doesn't seem like it. Dennis Allen absolutely did lack that part of being a head coach. And I had a video earlier this week where I broke down all the stuff that coaches have to do that people don't really think about. There is a big-time operational side of being an NFL head coach, all the way down to nutrition, all the way down to, players, the punishments of players if they're late. Barcelona, the prolific soccer team in Spanish football, I know last year under their head coach, they were fined, I think it was $5,000 every time they were late. Under their new coach, they just straight up don't play. If you're late, you don't play. So things like that matters. And from all accounts, Dennis Allen was horrible at that. And players were parking in handicap spaces. Players weren't doing their work after practice. It just seems like it was a mess. And Rizzi, it's telling that the first thing Rizzi does isn't X's and O's. It's not game planning. The first thing he does is start changing some of that infrastructure that Allen let go.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's only right that we make him answer some burning questions. Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Coach Pagano's Hot Seat.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to fire some questions at you that you will have a different perspective on than any of us, so we're very grateful for you. Let's start down in the Bayou, the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, they fired Dennis Allen after losing to the Panthers. Can't lose to the Panthers. Get your ass out of here if you're going to lose to Carolina Panthers. Have you heard what they've been saying about the Carolina Panthers? Carolina Panthers might not even make it in the 12-team playoff. Colorado Buffaloes might. Mm-hmm. Colorado Buffaloes might, but if Carolina was playing in college, they might not even make it into the damn playoff. That's how bad the Carolina Panthers are. Then Saints say, you know what? We're going to go in there. We're going to lose to them. Head coach gets fired. Schefter says maybe some more moves are going to be made down there. Maybe it's going to look completely different. They bring in interim coach Riz. This guy is a dog, friend of the program, special teams coordinator. And Derek Carr actually spoke about what practice is like with Riz as opposed to Coach Allen.
That's the most plays we've run in a practice in my career, in a long time. And so we got a lot of good reps. At different speeds, of course, but a lot of good reps, a lot of different looks, and hopefully that translates to you get more time on task on something, we get better at it, and DLT. So Lord knows we need to be better at what we're doing right now.
Lord knows,
so,
yes, he does.
Riz laid out some of the things that I'll let him talk about some of the things that he thinks we need to do better, but he also gave us a plan, and we executed that plan today.
Okay, so Coach Allen gets fired, second one of the season. Then Coach Riz comes in and actually does some change. You, Coach Pagano, how do you feel about the situation now in New Orleans, and what's your big takeaway?
Well, the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see, right? They got to get back on the field. It's unfortunate because I think we all respect Dennis Allen.
I don't respect him at all. I'll tell you that right now. I don't respect him whatsoever. And if Dennis Allen was a pudding, he'd be rice pudding. Why? Because rice pudding is absolutely disgusting. I don't know who likes that kind of texture. The tapioca rice pudding situation is gross. No doubt about it. It is gross. And Dennis Allen was a horrible head coach. At times, incredible defensive coordinator. And last year, really good defensive coordinator. But he just really lacked that operational infrastructure part of being the head coach. And in today's game, I'm telling you, that is so important. When people say, when people name just blank coordinators or blank whatever to be head coaches, and it's like, I want blank coordinator to be our head coach because I want a cool defense. It's like that. Then hire him to be a defensive coordinator, because head coach is so, everything has to be optimized. Everything has to be right. It's just like a company. It is a company. An NFL team is a business. And if your head coach is missing the details, just like a company, if a company's CEO is bad at the details and bad at the operational stuff and bad at the infrastructure, the company will suffer. And the New Orleans Saints suffered. And we saw it suffer on the field because after a while, the employees, a.k.a. the players, they just started to fall apart too with that kind of a weak infrastructure. And we saw that, unfortunately, we've seen that for 7 straight games. So, like Chuck said, the pudding, we're going to see it, right? We better see chocolate pudding. Banana pudding and chocolate pudding. What's the best pudding, ladies and gentlemen? I'll tell you this is controversial yet brave, but I'll go down a rabbit hole. My favorite, like the perfect peak pudding to me is, and this is old school, but when you make chocolate pudding and it's kind of hot, like it hasn't cooled yet, it's still kind of a hot version of the pudding. That's my favorite. Hot chocolate pudding. I remember Kids Cuisine, the TV dinners in the 90s, which I think was basically just styrofoam. But they had like a chocolate pudding brownie type situation where it would obviously get super hot because you had to microwave those things. That was the greatest. Just like the hot chocolate pudding is my vibe, which you're not going to hear a lot of people say. You're not going to hear a lot of people say that, but that's just kind of the out of the box thinking that we have going on here.
And think he's a really good football coach, a good defensive coordinator. This was his second shot. Start out, 2-0 in the season, 7 straight. Obviously, the dagger, the knife, the final deal, straw was losing, like you said, to the Panthers. But in comes Rizzi. We saw this last year, right? Chris Tabor in Carolina, Bisaccia a couple years ago in Las Vegas. Mark Davis might still be thinking, hey, I might have should have stuck. Maybe with Richie Bisaccia, another good player. I think we got Rizzi. You love to hear that from Derek Carr, but, the final straw is going to be, it's got to be, okay, regardless whether you bring in, would they start an activation period too?
Yeah, they started warm-ups. Warm-up. Actually, here's Coach Rizzi talking about a period that they've kind of instituted since he started.
But, you shouldn't just go out there and just start lifting weights or just go pick up a basketball and just start playing basketball. That's how you tear your Achilles, or that's how you get hurt, right?
Jesus.
So the activation is more of a sports science thing. We take those guys through an activation period so that when practice starts, they're actually already, sweating, and they're already, have already gone through and warm. Yeah. It's activation is a fancy name for a warm-up.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you this. So in my older age, back when I was younger, who cares, right? Like warm-ups, stretching, all that stuff, who cares? Now, in the gym, I picked up a couple of tweaks a couple months ago. I was starting to lift a little heavier, whatever, and I noticed I was getting really tweaked. I was pulling my oblique, pulling my groin, pulling my I had some forearm tendonitis situation, whatever. And so I started to really focus on warm-ups, and I'm talking 30 minutes of warming up. If I'm doing back and by, I'm just sitting there with the 5s, then the 10s, then the 15s, then the 20s, just doing rep after rep after rep. If I'm doing bench, I'm doing empty bar, 135. I'll do 135 3-4 sets of 20 before I even think about getting to my actual workout. So this is real deal Holyfield. The older you get, especially, make sure you are warming up, ladies and gentlemen, if you are lifting heavy. And if you ain't lifting heavy, what the hell are you doing in the gym?
That's what it sounded like.
Now it's activation, So, but they go through an activation period, and let the sports science guys and the strength staff kind of decide what's the best way to get those guys activated. But, it used to be something that was kind of voluntary, and then we did our stretch period. We made it a mandatory thing here just to try to change it up a little.
First, love Coach Rizzi being very transparent and explaining the entirety of it. He said it was voluntary, and then you get into a stretch period. Didn't you? Did you do the activation period? I don't recall. I don't think.
Yeah, we thought about. It wasn't voluntary. Some people volunteered out of it.
Who's that?
I think you did we'd run down, do a couple, toe touches or whatever, and then run back down and then do these side. And you're like, okay, Activate D's. I'm going to kick. I'm going to kick with Vinny. Okay, I'm good and loose. I'm sweating. No, but I think that's pretty routine now. You go to any practice in the National Football League, you're going to see probably all 32 teams doing some type of activation to get going.
But it feels like Coach Rizzi is saying, hey, listen, we're all warming up, okay, for practice. Guys kind of rolled the ball out there a couple different times. We don't want to do that. And then also at practice, we're rolling. Derek Carr was almost like, I don't want to say shocked while he was saying it, but he was trying to think back to the last time when my career, this might be a long time. And Lord knows, TOT, time on task, we need that whole thing.
Lord knows.
Hopefully it works down there.
So it seems like a lot of things probably were slipping through the cracks. There probably wasn't a lot of details.
Exactly. And that is the problem, I mean, and that's stuff we're not seeing. And, I can sit up here and say, well, Dennis Allen is one hell of a defensive coach. Like, well, blank coach is good on offense, or blank coach seems to do this. But what you don't see is those details, and what you don't see is what are these coaches making the players do? Like I said, when it comes to travel, even where they park. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but those details, that is the culture. The culture isn't just how you play. A lot of people get that mixed up where, oh, well, Sean Payton's culture was, we score a lot of points, we're exciting, we're an offensive juggernaut, whatever. His culture is what you don't see. Culture and game plan, or culture and scheme, are not the same thing. Sean Payton, I can guarantee you, had some serious attention to detail. I can guarantee you Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur have serious attention to detail. So don't get that twisted of what you think culture and identity actually is. It's not just your scheme and how you play. It's how you do everything else. What the players, what they are expected to do between the games is really what the culture is. And not surprising now that you look back on it, but Allen just didn't have it. And there's a lot of coaches that don't have it. And you can tell. You can tell who doesn't have it and all that. I use this reference in a couple of videos this week, but like Kevin O'Connell from Minnesota, he created this kind of like sleep structure, travel structure for the Vikings, where when they travel, it is to the letter, like science-backed, what they're expected to do, the food they're expected to eat, the fluids they're expected to drink, the sleep they're expected to get. Does it really matter? Does it really work? Who the hell knows? But the fact is that those details are being accounted for. Those details are being accounted for, whereas in New Orleans, Dennis Allen isn't even accounting for stretching. He isn't even accounting for the structure of practice. Because even if stretching isn't that big of a deal, the idea that you are getting ready for practice and the details are so flippant and so fluid, that seems like the worst possible way to go about a practice. So, I mean, I think it's a huge deal that was happening. This whole Rizzi thing, like, we don't know, Rizzi may be here for a short time, not a long time. So I don't know how much that'll really impact the franchise, but it does show that, since Peyton left, it is more than just, well, we had Jameis get hurt. Well, we had, whatever. We had Andy Dalton. Well, we had this player get hurt. Well, we were doing this, this, Mickey Loomis, this, Gail Benson, this. Like, it's more the stuff we really didn't have a chance to see.
Maybe like, when you go on those losing, like when you're winning, all that stuff's happening, but you're like, okay, sweep it under the rug. Yeah. We're good. Exactly. We don't want to disrupt. But then when you lose 7 straight,
you don't want to fix what's not broke. Like, right. We're winning. Who cares? Then as soon as you lose, it's like, you remember, punter just said, I'm not doing activation period.
Just left.
He was tired. I don't even know.
We were winning, so I was good with it.
Yeah, man. I was bombing the ball.
Hey, have a good day.
Yeah, listen, you understand if you decide not to do something, though, you're going to have to.
Onside,
you have to be good. Yeah, right. You're going to have to be good. If you suck now, there's a lot of things. Your case is kind of building. Loud on Twitter.
Yeah, sure.
Talks a lot. Skips out on activation period. We need to potentially can't have any shanks if you're old Pat McAfee. And I understood that.
All right, there you go. Interesting stuff to hear. That Rizzi's coming in and changing some of the infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, get on down in those comments below. Let me know what you think, how you kind of feel about the new activation period. Activate them comments. How about that? And I will see you in the next video.